商代祭司权力从神权共治到王权独尊的完整演变。Priestly power in the Shang dynasty, a complete evolution from theocracy, monarchy shared rule to monarchical supremacy. 一，商代祭司权力确实极大，是中国早期神权政治的顶峰。Priestly power in the Shang dynasty was indeed paramount, marking the apex of early Chinese theocratic politics. The Shang dynasty was an era in which theocratic and monarchical powers were deeply intertwined. Priests encompassing diviners, shamans, invocators, and scribes, with the Zenren diviner core, as their core monopolized all channels of communication between humans and the spirits. Their sources of authority and practical control remain unparalleled in pre-Qin Chinese history. At the height of their power, the priestly class achieved the following. Monopolizing supreme state decision-making. Divination preceded all royal actions, military campaigns, capital relocations, heir designation, agriculture, harvests, natural disasters, and the royal clan's fortunes all required divination before the king could act. Zhenren interpreted cracks on oracle bones and inscribed divination records, turning the will of the spirits into state decrees, with the king acting merely as the executor of divine will. Holding substantive veto power over the monarchy. If divinations revealed inauspicious signs, the king's plans were suspended outright. Many early oracle bone inscriptions bear only the diviner's name, not the king's, proving that the Zenren could issue divine edicts independently without subordination to royal authority. 3. Controlling supreme sacrifices and the source of political legitimacy, priests presided over state sacrifices to the high god, royal ancestors, and natural deities, managing offerings, ritual vessels, and human mortal sacrifices. The legitimacy of Shang kingship rested on the blessing of ancestral spirits, and only priests could mediate between the throne and these ancestors, meaning the king's right to rule required priestly endorsement. 4. Monopolizing writing, calendars, and the entire knowledge system, oracle bone script was the exclusive domain of priests. Calendrics, astronomy, historical records, and anomaly reports were all administered by this class, forming the sole intellectual elite of the time, a synthesis of religious officiant, historiographer, astronomer, and legal authority. 5. Forming a Zenren core, independent of royal power. The early Shang court supported a hereditary group of diviners, whose craft passed down through clans, creating a stable aristocratic block of theocratic power that could rival the royal house. Academic corroboration from Chinese and foreign scholars. On the institutions of the Yin and Zhou dynasties, Wang Guowei established the foundational thesis that the Ying people gave precedence to spirits over ritual, clarifying that Shang politics revolved around sacrifice and divination, with theocratic power overriding secular authority. The king shared governance with Zenren and shamans, making the Shang the apex of ancient Chinese theocratic politics. Chen Mengjia's general summary of Yin ruins oracle bone inscriptions further verified that Zenren oversaw scorching the bones, posing the questions, and interpreting the cracks, holding an unbroken monopoly on the interpretation of divine messages. David N. Cately additionally corroborated in sources of Shang history that diviners' inscriptions from the early and middle Wu Ding reign took effect without royal involvement, granting theocratic power independent political. Chen Mengjia and Chang Yuji confirmed that Bin independently presided over top-tier divinations for warfare, sacrifice, 10-day forecasts, and royal misfortune, posing questions, interpreting signs, and inscribing records without royal orders. Inscriptions read only Bing Zhen, divined by Bin with no royal name. For example, Heiji Iling Silingu Recto, Guisi cracked, Bing divined, no misfortune in the 10-day period? Keighthley identifies such inscriptions as routine state divinations fully directed by the diviner, with the king only fulfilling the result. Diviner Zheng Kor Zhenren of the Wu Ding reign, a key colleague of Bin, specializing in divinations on foreign wars and divine blessings. Heiji Liuling Wuqi Recto reads, Yu cracked, Zheng divined, if we attack the Fang people, ILL the high god grant us protection. Ito Michiharu interprets that this divination was held solely by Zheng to obtain divine will before the king's planned expedition, and the divine result directly determined the launch of the war, giving the diviner substantive veto power over major royal decisions. Diviner Zhen Major Zhenren of the Wu Ding reign responsible for royal sacrifices, offerings, and agricultural divinations. Heiji Iwu Senjiu, Gengzi cracked, again divined, the king will offer sacrifice to Zhu Yi. Shall we use an ox? Liu Yuan points out that Zhen independently ruled on the sacrifice recipient, offering type and quantity, controlling the ritual and resource allocation power of state-level sacrifices, which the royal authority had to follow. Diviner Gu Senior Zhenren of the Wu Ding reign specialized in divinations on the king's travels, hunts, and disasters. Multiple inscriptions show him halting royal plans with inauspicious judgments. For example, Heiji 10919, divined, he shall go, Gu said inauspicious. Zhu Feng'an verifies that such diviner said formulas are direct records of diviners vetoing royal affairs in the name of divine will, confirming their binding authority over the monarchy. In short, at its peak, especially before Wu Ding, the priestly bloc represented theocratic power, the kingship acted as its agent, theocracy outweighed monarchy, and priests could decide, veto, and endorse political legitimacy. 2. 商代中后期，王权持续上升，真人权力明显缩小。2. Middle to late Shang dynasty, rising royal power and marked decline of priestly, Zhenren, authority. From the late Wu Ding reign to Di Xing, king. Zhou, at the end of the Shang, a clear trajectory emerged. Royal power continuously absorbed theocratic authority and priestly influence shrank steadily. 1. Key moves of royal expansion. The king became chief diviner. After Wu Ding, more and more inscriptions bore the king divined or the king judged, as Shang kings directly participated in divination and crack interpretation, seizing the power to communicate with the spirits. Shrinking the independent Zhenren core. The number of hereditary diviners plummeted, their names appeared far less frequently, and theocratic power shifted from an aristocratic bloc to direct royal control. Centralizing sacrifice in the royal house. Shang kings personally presided over supreme sacrifices, turning rituals into exclusive royal ceremonies. Priests were reduced to executors, not decision-makers. Strengthening direct line ancestral worship. Emphasizing the divinity of the king's direct line predecessors weakened the mediating role of aristocratic priests and non-direct ancestors, allowing the monarchy to connect directly with ancestral spirits. Concrete manifestations of diminished priestly power. Reduced decision-making weight. Divination became a procedural confirmation dominated by royal will, with divine will reduced to symbolic endorsement. Disappearance of independent divine edicts. Inscriptions centered entirely on the king, with no more diviner decrees independent of royal authority. Demotion from decision-makers to functionaries. Priests turned from divine mediators into ritual attendants, scribes and astronomers, integrated into the royal bureaucratic system, royal control over human, mortal sacrifices and ritual scale. Priests no longer dominated ritual politics. Academic corroboration from Chinese and foreign scholars. Wang Guowei used inscription signatures to prove that the surge in king divine texts after Wu Ding was direct written evidence of the monarchy seizing divine communication and dissolving the Zhenren's independence. Dong Xiaobin's 5-period oracle bone chronology quantified this decline. 73 verified Zhenren in Wu Ding's reign, 22 inches Zhuzheng Zujia's, 18 inches Lin Xin, Kang Ding's, only Yi in Wu Yi's, and nearly no independent diviner signatures in Di Yi Shen's. The sharp numerical drop corresponded directly to the collapse of their authority. Hurley-Ji Creel argued in The Birth of China that late Shang diviners fell from theocratic aristocrats competing with the king to royal divination clerks, with theocracy fully absorbed by monarchy. K.W. Chang supplemented from shamanistic and archaeological perspectives that by honoring only direct ancestors, Shang kings cut off the divine links between aristocratic diviners and collateral ancestors, undermining their legitimacy at the religious root. Robert Bagley confirmed through Yin Ruin's ritual vessel distribution that high-grade ritual wares were concentrated in royal tombs in the late Shang, and diviners lost control of core ritual resources, the material foundation of theocracy. Itomicichih. ARU further noted that the king said replaced the diviner said in late Shang inscriptions, with divine interpretation fully monopolized by the crown, leaving diviners only technical tasks like scorching and inscribing,